All right, so today we're really going deep, back into ancient history to unpack this huge story, this covenant between God and Abraham. Genesis chapter 17, that's where we're headed, to break down the promises, try to get at the meaning behind all the symbols, and figure out why this story still matters thousands of years later.
It's wild, right? Like, this story's been passed down for centuries, and people are still debating it, still trying to figure out what it means for faith, for family, for how we understand God even.
Exactly. Okay, so the scene is set. We've got Abram, who's, get this, 99 years old. 99. And bam, God appears.
I don't know about you, but if I saw God at 99, I think my brain would short circuit.
You and me both. Talk about a life-changing moment, right? And God's not just there for a quick chat. This is serious business, a divine contract that's going to change everything for Abram and echo down through, well, all of history, really.
Okay, so let's get into it then. What exactly is on the table here? What's in this covenant that's such a big deal? So this is where it gets really interesting. God's not messing around. This isn't just a promise. This is a whole life makeover for Abram. First off, no more Abram. You are now Abraham, father of a multitude. That's what the name means.
Whoa, a name change. Even today, that feels significant, like you're stepping into a whole new identity.
Absolutely. It's deeper than just a new label. It's a destiny, a new direction for his whole life. It's like God saying, Abraham, forget what you were. You're someone new now, the father of countless descendants. It's huge. And it doesn't stop there. God promises Abraham the land of Canaan for his family forever, a physical sign of God's favor, you know.
Wow, talk about leaving a legacy. But it feels like it's even more than just the physical stuff, right? The land, the kids, it's about this connection between God and Abraham. That's got to be central here.
You're exactly right. It's about way more than just material things. This covenant, it establishes this totally unique bond between them. It's the starting point for the entire nation of Israel. Their whole identity is tied to this moment, to God saying, I will be their God and they will be my people. Talk about a promise. Loyalty, protection, blessings. It's all right there.
Wow. It's like the ultimate promise, and not just for one lifetime, but stretching across generations. Incredible. So how do you even seal a deal like that?
That's where circumcision comes in.
Yeah.
It's the physical sign, the ritual to mark the covenant. Every male born into the family or brought in later, everyone gets circumcised. It's a sign of belonging.
That is a powerful image, an outward sign of something much deeper.
Exactly. It's about physically carrying this mark of the covenant, this constant reminder that they're set apart, chosen, connected to God in this unique way. And it ties them together across generations, united by this act of faith.
It's fascinating how this story takes these huge, abstract, spiritual ideas and makes them real, tangible, through actions and symbols.
It's really amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's not just a story about men either. God changes Sarai's name too. She becomes Sarah.
Another name change. Okay, so clearly she's a major part of this covenant too. What's the meaning behind Sarah's new name?
Just like with Abraham, her name change shows how her role, her identity, is being transformed by this covenant. Sarah means princess or noblewoman. She's not just Abram's wife anymore. She's Sarah, a matriarch in her own right. And here's where the story goes from amazing to unbelievable. God promises that Sarah, even though she's way past childbearing age, will have a son.
Wait, hold on. Sarah's got to be, what, 90 years old at this point?
You got it. If you're going by normal human experience, this is impossible. But God promises that Sarah will have a son, Isaac, and it's through Isaac that the covenant will continue.
Sarah having a baby at 90, wow, that really makes you think about what's possible. Like, are there limits to what God can do? It kind of throws our whole understanding of the natural world out the window.
No kidding. And, this is where we get to see the human side of this whole incredible encounter. How does Abraham react to this news? He laughs. He even questions God. Like, hey, what about Ishmael, my son? Can he be the one to carry on the covenant?
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine getting news like that and just being like, okay, cool, sounds good. It's got to mess with your head a bit. So how do we understand Abraham laughing? Is it doubt? Straight up disbelief?
It's one of those moments that's really open to interpretation. Some people see it as Abraham struggling to grasp just how massive God's promise really is. Try to put yourself in his shoes. You're 100 years old, and suddenly you're going to have a kid. It flips everything he thought he knew about life on its head.
Yeah, no kidding. So is he laughing at how crazy it sounds, or is there some awe mixed in there too? Like, wow, God, you work in mysterious ways, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it could totally be both. He's got to be thinking about the logistics, right? But at the same time, he's got to recognize that God can do anything, even the impossible. And what's really interesting is that God doesn't come down on him for laughing. He reassures Abraham, makes it clear that Sarah will have a son, Isaac, and Isaac will be the one to carry on the covenant.
Which brings us to Ishmael. What happens to Abraham's first son in all of this?
God doesn't forget about Ishmael, not at all. He promises Abraham that Ishmael will also have an amazing future. He'll be the father of 12 princes, a whole nation. It shows that God's blessings can flow in many different directions, even if the covenant itself is specifically through Isaac.
So they're both blessed in the end, but the covenant, the special agreement, that's through Isaac.
Exactly, and that distinction becomes super important down the line. It shapes how the story plays out over generations, how these different family lines develop, what they believe. It's all connected back to this moment. Pretty amazing when you think about it.
It really is. Okay, so we've got the covenant, the promises are made. What happens next? What do Abraham and his family actually do?
Well, Abraham doesn't waste any time. He takes God's words seriously, very seriously, and immediately calls together all the men in his household, including Ishmael, who's 13 at this point, and just like God instructed, they all go through with the circumcision. Even Abraham, at 99 years old, he takes part in this act of faith, no hesitation.
Wow, that takes some serious commitment, you know? It
Yeah.
really shows how much weight this covenant had for them. It wasn't just words, it was life-changing.
Totally. It gets at the core of their belief, their willingness to completely align themselves with this covenant, physically and spiritually.
It's wild how this story mixes these super personal, intimate moments with these huge pronouncements about nations and legacies that will last forever.
It's what makes it so powerful,
Yeah.
right? It's deeply personal and universally relatable at the same time.
Absolutely. So we've covered the promises, the symbols, the human reactions to this crazy encounter with God. But what's the takeaway? Why does this covenant made thousands of years ago still matter so much today? I mean, this story, it's like the starting point for so many different faiths, right?
Yeah, it's huge. This covenant is foundational. Judaism, Christianity, Islam, they all trace back to this moment. It's this core narrative about God being faithful, about why obedience matters, about how faith, it's not just a personal thing, it's a legacy, something you pass down through generations.
It's like the greatest inheritance ever, but instead of money or land, it's this deep spiritual connection that gets passed down.
That's it exactly. And what's really interesting is how this one story can be understood in so many ways. It's incredible. It sparks all these conversations about, like, what is faith really? What does it mean to have free will if there's also a plan? How does God work in history? I mean, there's so much to unpack here.
It makes you think, right? How much do our own beliefs and experiences shape the way we read these ancient stories? It's got to be a factor.
Oh, absolutely. We all come to these texts with our own questions, our own baggage. Like, think about the idea of land being such a central promise in this covenant. Back then, land wasn't just property. It was everything. Security, food, connection to your ancestors. It was way deeper.
So God promising Abraham the land of Canaan, it's about so much more than just a place on a map, right? It's about belonging, about a future for his family, a future that lasts.
Exactly. And that promise, it still resonates with people today, even thousands of years later. It's remarkable.
It really is. Makes you think about all the agreements, the big ones, the small ones, that have shaped history, that still affect us today, you know?
Absolutely. It's a great thing to reflect on. And I hope this deep dive, it inspires you to keep thinking about that, keep exploring what stories, what promises, what agreements, what shapes your world.
So much to think about. Honestly, I kind of want to go back and reread this whole chapter now with fresh eyes, you know?
That's the beauty of these ancient stories. There's always something new to discover, to learn. It's a journey, and that's what makes it so worthwhile.